Okay, let's dive deep into something that could be lurking in the shadows of your retirement plan. Something that has the power to silently undermine everything you've worked for. We're talking about the hidden retirement tax that could wipe you out. Now, when you hear tax, you probably think of the IRS, income tax, property tax, sales tax, those official, government levied charges that we all grumble about but ultimately plan for. But the tax I'm talking about today isn't one that comes with a form or a due date from Uncle Sam. No, this one is far more insidious. It's invisible. It's relentless. And if you're not acutely aware of it and actively fighting against it, it can, and often does, dismantle even the most carefully constructed retirement dreams. So, what is this terrifying, dream-destroying hidden tax? It's a force you experience every single day, probably without giving it much thought in the context of your long-term future. It's inflation. Yeah, I know. Inflation. It sounds so economic, so abstract. Maybe you're thinking, oh, that just means prices go up a bit each year. No big deal, right? Wrong. So incredibly, dangerously wrong, especially when we're talking about a retirement that could span decades. Think of inflation as a slow, silent leak in the tires of your retirement vehicle. When you're young and still earning, you're constantly pumping more air, income, into those tires, so a small leak might not seem like a big deal. You can outpace it. But when you retire, the income pump largely shuts off. You're relying on the air already in those tires, your savings, your investments, to carry you for the rest of the journey. And that slow, silent leak? It becomes a critical, potentially catastrophic problem. Let's break this down, not with a barrage of confusing numbers, but with real-world understanding. Imagine your retirement. You've worked hard. You've saved diligently. You've pictured those golden years, maybe some travel, pursuing hobbies, spending quality time with grandkids, or simply enjoying a life free from the daily grind. You've calculated what you need, and you think you have enough. But here's where the hidden tax of inflation starts its dirty work. The stealthy erosion of your buying power. The core issue with inflation is that it erodes your purchasing power. What a dollar buys today, it won't buy tomorrow, or next year, or certainly not 10, 20, or 30 years into your retirement. Let's paint a picture. Think back 20 or 30 years. Do you remember what a gallon of milk cost? A loaf of bread? A movie ticket? A new car? It was significantly less than it is today, right? That's inflation in action. It's not that the milk or the bread got fancier, it's that the value of the money used to buy them decreased. Now, project that forward. You retire today with, say, a nest egg that you believe will generate enough income to live comfortably. Let's imagine that income gives you a certain lifestyle. You can afford your home, your car, your groceries, your healthcare, and a bit of fun. Life is good. But year after year, inflation, our hidden tax, is chipping away. That fixed income you're drawing, or even an income that's only growing very modestly, starts to buy less and less. The cost of your groceries creeps up. The utility bills edge higher. The price of gasoline for your car seems to always be on an upward trend. The co-pays for your medications, your doctor visits, those essential healthcare needs, they get more expensive. Individually, these small increases might seem manageable in the short term. Oh, it's just a few cents more for this, $1 more for that. But compound that over 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 years of retirement. That's the killer. It's the compounding effect of this hidden tax that does the real damage. It's like termites in the foundation of your house. You don't see them. You don't hear them. But slowly, steadily, they are weakening the very structure that supports you. By the time you notice the sagging floors and cracked walls, the damage can be extensive and devastatingly expensive to repair, if it's even reparable at all. Why is this tax so often underestimated? There are a few reasons why this inflation beast is so frequently underestimated in retirement planning. The boiling frog syndrome. You've heard the analogy. If you put a frog in boiling water, it will jump out. But if you put it in cool water and slowly heat it, the frog won't perceive the danger until it's too late. Inflation is like that slow heating. A little bit each year doesn't trigger alarm bells. It's not a sudden shock to the system. It's a gradual decline, so subtle that many retirees don't realize how much ground they're losing until they're significantly squeezed. Focus on accumulation, not preservation. For most of our working lives, the focus is on accumulating wealth. We're saving, we're investing for growth. We're trying to build that nest egg. The primary concern is how much we can save. We don't spend as much time thinking about how to preserve the purchasing power of that nest egg once we stop earning. The mindset shift from accumulation to preservation and distribution is crucial, and that's where understanding inflation's impact becomes paramount. Underestimating lifespans, people are living longer. That's wonderful news. But it also means your retirement savings need to last longer. A retirement that spans 30 years is not uncommon today. 30 years is a very long time for inflation to work its corrosive magic. If your plan was based on a shorter lifespan, or if it didn't adequately account for inflation over such an extended period, you could find yourself in serious trouble in your later years, precisely when you're most vulnerable. The illusion of safe investments. Many people approaching or in retirement understandably become more risk-averse. They might shift their money into what they perceive as safe havens, things like cash, savings accounts, or certain types of very conservative bonds. While these might protect your principal from market volatility, they often offer little to no protection against inflation. In fact, if the interest you're earning is less than the rate of inflation, which it often is in low-interest rate environments, your money is actually losing purchasing power every single day, even though the nominal dollar amount stays the same or inches up slightly. It's a guaranteed loss in real terms. You're treading water, or worse, sinking slowly, while thinking you're safe on the shore. The areas where inflation hits hardest in retirement. While inflation affects everything, certain expenses are particularly vulnerable and can disproportionately impact retirees. Healthcare, this is the big one. Healthcare costs have historically risen at a rate significantly faster than general inflation. As we age, our healthcare needs typically increase. Prescription drugs, doctor visits, hospital stays, potential long-term care, these are not discretionary expenses. You can't just decide to skip your heart medication or put off a necessary surgery because prices went up. This makes healthcare a massive, and rapidly inflating, component of a retiree's budget. If your income isn't keeping pace, you could face heartbreaking choices between your health and other necessities. Housing, whether it's property taxes, which rarely go down, insurance, maintenance, or rent. If you're a renter, housing costs tend to trend upwards. Even if you own your home outright, the ongoing costs of keeping it can become a significant burden if your income is stagnant in real terms. Basic necessities, food, energy for heating, cooling, and transportation, and other day-to-day essentials are subject to inflationary pressures. You can try to be more frugal, clip coupons, or drive less, but there's a limit to how much you can cut back on the absolute basics required for a dignified life. Let's talk about the wipe you out part. The title of this discussion isn't meant to be needlessly alarmist, but it is meant to be a wake-up call. How can inflation, this seemingly mundane economic factor, actually wipe you out? It happens gradually, then often suddenly. Imagine you retire, and your budget is comfortable. You have a little extra. For the first few years, inflation nibbles. You adjust. Maybe you skip a vacation 1 year, or dine out a little less. No biggie. But as the years roll on, the nibbling becomes biting. The adjustments become more painful. You're now cutting back on things you considered essential to your quality of life. The hobbies you dreamed of pursuing become too expensive. The travel plans are permanently shelved. Then, a health issue arises, as it often does in later life. The medical bills, already inflated, combined with your diminished purchasing power, create a perfect storm. You start drawing down your principal savings much faster than planned just to cover these essential costs. This is the downward spiral. your nest egg, which was supposed to last for decades, starts to deplete at an alarming rate. The stress mounts. The fear of outliving your money becomes a daily torment. What was once a comfortable retirement morphs into a struggle for survival. That's how the hidden tax of inflation, combined with life's other curveballs, can indeed wipe out your financial security and your peace of mind. It's not usually a sudden, dramatic event like a stock market crash, though those can happen too. It's a slow, grinding depletion, like a rising tide that eventually swamps your boat. So, what can you do? How do you fight this hidden tax? Okay, enough doom and gloom. The good news is that while inflation is a powerful force, it's not an unbeatable one. Awareness is the first crucial step, and if you're still with me, you've taken that step. Now, let's talk about strategies. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't specific financial advice, but these are common sense principles and areas you absolutely need to discuss with a qualified professional. Acknowledge and plan for it. This sounds obvious, but it's the foundation. Don't stick your head in the sand. When you're doing your retirement projections, you must factor in a realistic long-term inflation rate. Don't just assume today's expenses will be tomorrow's expenses. Project how those costs will grow over 20, 30, or even 40 years. This will give you a much more accurate picture of how much you truly need. Invest for growth. Even in retirement, this is where many people get tripped up. The idea of safety in retirement often leads to an overly conservative investment approach. But as we've discussed, cash or very low-yield investments are often a guaranteed way to lose to inflation. A portion of your portfolio, even in retirement, generally needs to be allocated to assets that have the potential to outpace inflation. Historically, things like stocks, equities, have provided long-term growth that has beaten inflation. Of course, stocks come with volatility and risk, so this needs to be balanced according to your individual risk tolerance, time horizon, and financial situation. The key is finding the right balance between growth and stability. You don't want to be so conservative that inflation eats you alive, but you also don't want to be so aggressive that market downturns devastate your income stream. Consider inflation-protected assets. There are specific types of investments designed to help protect against inflation. Things like Treasury inflation-protected securities, TIPS, are bonds whose principal value adjusts with inflation. Series I savings bonds are another government bond that has an inflation component in its interest rate. Real estate can sometimes act as an inflation hedge, as property values and rental income may rise with inflation. Commodities can also sometimes perform well during inflationary periods, though they are typically more volatile. Again, these are options to explore and discuss with a professional to see if they fit your overall strategy. Build a flexible income plan. Your retirement income strategy shouldn't be rigid. It needs to have some built-in flexibility to adapt to rising costs. This might involve a withdrawal strategy that adjusts for inflation each year. It could mean having different buckets of money, some for short-term needs, more conservative, some for long-term growth, potentially more aggressive. Some annuities offer inflation protection riders, which can provide an income stream that increases over time, though these come with their own costs and complexities. Don't underestimate healthcare costs, and plan specifically for them given that healthcare inflates faster than general prices. You need a specific plan for this. Understand your Medicare options thoroughly. Consider supplemental Medigap policies or Medicare Advantage plans to help cover out-of-pocket costs. Look into long-term care insurance if it makes sense for your situation, though it can be expensive and isn't right for everyone. Alternatively, have a plan for how you would fund long-term care if needed. It's one of the biggest potential budget busters in later life. Health savings accounts, HSAs, if you're eligible to contribute to one before retirement, can be a fantastic tool, offering triple tax advantages and allowing funds to grow tax-free for future medical expenses. Review and adjust your plan regularly. Retirement isn't a set it and forget it scenario. Your needs will change, market conditions will change, and inflation will continue its march. You and your financial advisor, if you have one, and it's highly recommended you should review your retirement plan at least annually. Are your investments performing as expected? Is your withdrawal rate sustainable? How is inflation impacting your actual expenses versus your projections? Do you need to make adjustments to your spending or your investment allocation? Consider a buffer or contingency fund. Life throws curveballs. Unexpected repairs, family emergencies, or a spike in inflation constrain your budget. Having a contingency fund, separate from your core retirement investments, can provide a crucial buffer without forcing you to sell growth assets at an inopportune time. Delaying Social Security. For many people, delaying claiming Social Security benefits beyond their full retirement age can result in a significantly higher monthly benefit for the rest of their life. This higher benefit is also inflation adjusted by Social Security's cost of living adjustments, COLAs. This can be a powerful inflation-fighting tool, essentially, buying a larger, inflation-protected pension from the government. Of course, the decision of when to claim is complex and depends on your health, other income sources, and marital status. Potential for some continued work or encore career, for some, working part-time in retirement, not just for the money but also for engagement and purpose, can be a great way to supplement income and reduce the strain on savings, providing a natural hedge against inflation. It doesn't have to be the high-stress career you left. It could be something you genuinely enjoy. The mindset shift from fixed to flexible and growing. Perhaps the most important strategy is a mental one. You need to shift your thinking away from the idea of a fixed income in retirement. If your income is truly fixed and costs are rising, you are on a collision course. Your income, or at least your ability to access funds, needs to have the capacity to grow over time to maintain your standard of living. This doesn't mean you need to become a day trader or take wild risks. It means understanding that safety in retirement isn't just about preserving your principal, it's about preserving your purchasing power. And that often requires a thoughtful, balanced approach to investing that includes an element of growth. Think about your legacy, too. Inflation doesn't just impact your ability to live comfortably. It can also affect any legacy you wish to leave. If your savings are being eroded by rising costs, there might be less left for your loved ones or charitable causes you care about. Protecting your assets from inflation is also about protecting your ability to achieve those longer-term goals. A story to illustrate the point, without too many numbers. Imagine two couples, the Smiths and the Joneses. Both retire at the same time with roughly the same amount of savings. The Smiths are very conservative. They put almost all their money into savings accounts and very short-term bonds, believing this is the safest route. They draw a fixed amount each month. For the first few years, things are fine. The Joneses, after consulting with an advisor, decide on a balanced portfolio. A good portion is in conservative investments for stability and near-term income, but they also keep a significant chunk in a diversified mix of quality stocks and other growth-oriented assets. They also plan to adjust their withdrawals modestly upwards each year to try and keep pace with expected cost of living increases. Fast forward 15 years. The Smiths are struggling. The cost of everything has gone up noticeably. Their fixed income now feels tight. They've cut back on travel, then on hobbies. Now they're worried about affording an unexpected home repair or a new medical bill. The safety of their approach has led to a very real decline in their lifestyle and an increase in their anxiety. Their purchasing power has been stealthily taxed away. The Joneses, on the other hand, are still comfortable. Their growth investments, while experiencing ups and downs along the way, have generally outpaced inflation over the long term. Their income withdrawals, which they've prudently increased over the years, still cover their needs and allow them to enjoy their retirement as planned. They understood the hidden tax and took proactive steps to combat it. This isn't a guarantee, of course. Investing involves risk. But the risk of not planning for inflation, the risk of letting that hidden tax slowly bleed you dry, is often far greater in the long run. The call to action: don't be a victim of the hidden tax. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? It's not to panic. It's to prepare. The hidden retirement tax of inflation is real. It's powerful. And it has the potential to derail your dreams if you ignore it. But you don't have to be its victim. Educate yourself, continue to learn about how inflation impacts retirement. Understand the strategies that can be used to mitigate its effects. Watch videos like this, read articles, talk to people. Seek professional guidance. This is crucial. A qualified financial advisor who understands retirement income planning can help you assess your situation, calculate your long-term needs, factoring in inflation, and develop a personalized strategy. They can help you navigate the complexities of investment choices, withdrawal strategies, and healthcare planning. Don't try to do this all on your own, especially if you're not comfortable with financial planning. The stakes are too high. Take a hard look at your current plan. If you already have a retirement plan, dust it off. Does it explicitly account for inflation? What assumptions is it making about future cost increases? Is your investment strategy aligned with the need to preserve purchasing power over several decades? If you're not sure, that's a sign you need to revisit it, probably with professional help. Start now. If you haven't already, the earlier you start planning for inflation's impact, the better. Compounding works both ways. It can magnify the damage of inflation, but it can also magnify the growth of your well-positioned investments. If you're younger, you have a longer runway to build a robust, inflation-resistant plan. If you're closer to retirement or already in it, it's even more urgent to ensure your strategy is sound. It's never too late to make improvements. Stay vigilant. This isn't a one-time fix. As I said, review your plan regularly. Stay informed about economic trends. Be prepared to make adjustments as your life and the world around you change. Your retirement should be a time of security, fulfillment, and peace of mind. You've worked hard for it. Don't let the silent, hidden tax of inflation sneak in and steal it away. By understanding the threat, and by taking proactive, informed steps to address it, you can protect your future and ensure that your golden years truly shine. Think about it. You wouldn't ignore a notice from the IRS demanding a significant sum of money. You'd figure out what it means and how to deal with it. Inflation is like that demand notice, only it doesn't come in an envelope. It comes in the form of higher prices at the grocery store, more expensive medical bills, and a slowly shrinking lifestyle if you're not prepared. Don't let this be your story. Take control. Confront the hidden retirement tax head on. Build a plan that acknowledges its power and deploys strategies to fight back. Your future self will thank you profoundly. This is one of the most critical financial challenges you'll face in your lifetime, and overcoming it is key to a successful, stress-free retirement. Make that plan, work that plan, and protect your hard-earned future.